50, episode 50.
Halfway to the 100 episodes of the Ten Crutches Podcast.
I always, at least for the first 49 episodes, I always had a script to read. For example, right now, I'm reading an introductory script for this episode. I don't always follow the script exactly. I often say some things that aren't in it, or I change some of the wording around as I read it, or maybe I'll just glance at a paragraph and then shut my eyes and just riff and put it all into my own words of that moment. But I think of it like this. I'm the producer of the podcast. I make sure it gets out every week. Monday at noon, there's always a new episode till I come up with 100. That's the deal I made with myself. So then I come up with a new episode. I become the director. I need to direct the idea team. And I imagine us all sitting around a big table in my mind, all the different aspects of myself, throwing out ideas, see what sticks. So then, as the director, I hand an idea off to my writer, which is also me. So I hand it off to me, and then the writer hands it to the editor and works with the writer and shows it to the director. And anyway, we all work together to get the script ready to record. So then the writer disappears. Writer's gone. The script goes into, quote, the studio, which is just a place where I can put the microphone. And so now I become the voice of the podcast. I become the person who is recording the podcast. So mostly I try to stick with what the writer came up with. The director wants me to do that, but sometimes the podcast person, I have an in with the producer, so I have some liberty to ad lib here and there during the recording. So then this raw recording, we hand it off to the sound guy, which is me. And then, if you know anything about working with audio, I bring up the RMS level into a good zone, and I make sure the noise floor is okay, blah, blah, blah. So then I have to edit the recording, get rid of all the pauses and blah, blah, blahs and the times where I stuttered or, whatever I did. And then I hand the finished podcast over to the tech guy. The tech guy is me going to the podcast platform, queuing up the podcast in a line. And then I also update the archive at the podcast website whenever a new episode is released. So this is what I did for the first 49 episodes, just like that. But the producer, me, I wanted a stronger voice. I wanted a little stronger voice. Anyway, I suggested that the voice of the podcast watch a couple videos, do a couple of voice exercises, something to work with your voice a little bit. So I read some videos. I watched some videos and then started to do some vocal warm-ups before I would record the script. So one example of a vocal warm-up I found is my favorite one. You make a siren sound. You go from low to high and then back down again, so you get your vocal cords all warmed up. Here's a little example, as if you've got nothing better to do. So I'm warming up with my voices one time with these exercises. It occurred to me, maybe while I'm doing all this siren stuff, I could be talking, I could be saying things, just kind of get my mouth warmed up. And I thought about babbling just as a continuation of the warm-up. I just kept using my voice. I said what I'm going to say. Whatever's in my head, I'm just going to come out. So I started off by going, "Hey, universe." And I was surprised that was what came out of my mouth. I just kept riffing for a few sentences, and at the same time, I'm wondering, who am I talking to? I'm talking to the universe? Am I talking at the universe? I'm talking with the universe? So I kept going for a few sentences, and I thought, I think I'm just going to record this. And everything was already all set up. I was warming up, getting ready to record a script. So I just hit the record button, started again with, hey, universe, and then I just continued. So this episode, number 50, this is the halfway point of the 10 Crutches podcast. The first episode, not planned, not scripted, didn't know what I was going to say from moment to moment. And so after the introductory music, I'm simply going to play you that recording that was made that day. No edits, no changes, nothing. All I did with the recording was adjust the sound levels, but then that was it. So this was recorded mid-April 2026. I'm talking to you now mid-May 2026. Not exactly sure when episode 50 is going to come out. It's probably July, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, here we go, because that's what I want you to hear today. Hello, and welcome to the 10 Crutches Podcast. My name is David. I'm glad you're here. Hey, universe. What are you doing? What are you doing? Especially with me. Like, why me? I don't get it. And I'm like, okay, I've studied you enough to know that my little mind isn't going to really be able to cut it when it comes to figuring you out. I mean, yeah, sure. Study the stars, study the time-space continuum, quantum mechanics, cellular things, protein folding. There's all kinds of things to understand. But none of those things touch me. Like, I'm interested. I'm actually nerdy enough to be interested in a lot of them. So thank you for that. But really, like, being alive in just such a vast space and with so many other people. There's just so many other people, and they're all thinking their things and doing their things. And some of them were like making a lot of trouble for a lot of the rest of us. And then what? Like, I have a better idea of how things should be. I don't have a freaking clue. So thanks, I guess, for this crazy, convoluted, upside down, inside out, like just giving me this mind. I mean, obviously I have a mind, and yet as far as figuring you out, it's kind of worthless. So then what? Like, then I just live my life like all these little things, these little details. I get thirsty, I want to drink of water. So then that's my life. I'm drinking some water. Okay, great. I am stuck on the wanting more. I want more what? What is there that I can have more of that would actually be a good thing for me or for everybody, or for like what? Like more money? Yeah, sure. Okay, more money would make my life a little comfortable. Great. So then I'm a little more comfortable. So then, I don't know, I guess that's a good thing. Maybe I should have enough that I could give away a lot of money to people. And then they'll have a little more comfort. But it doesn't get it. It doesn't get at this question. Who am I? I mean, I've done those exercises, where you say, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And then you give an answer. I am David. I'm David. And then you go, okay, who am I? I'm David. I'm some guy sitting here answering questions. And you keep asking, who am I? And you keep going deeper and deeper, or wider and wide. Like, you keep going till you don't have anything, but then you have to keep going. I remember once there was this, I think it was like a 3-week workshop, And part of it, the first part of the workshop, the first week, every morning you would spend crying. You would just bring up the tears and just cry and cry and cry, like for an hour or something. Then you take a break, I guess. You got to have lunch. And then, you're hanging out. It's a day. So I don't know how many times per day you cried. But that whole first week was about crying, finding all the sadness, finding all the mourning, the grieving for how bad it can get, how bad we can treat each other, how bad I'm not quite feeling the tears, but I could get there. So then the second week is laughing. The second week during that time of the day in the morning before lunch, I think about lunch a lot, obviously. That's the crying time. So then no, that's the laughing. The crying was the first week. So then you're in the laughing time. So then you're laughing. And the third week is neither crying nor laughing. The third week is just sitting there during that time before lunch. And then that's the 3 weeks. And people reported it was really amazing, really. And I could imagine. I didn't have the time at that point, or, well, maybe it was the inclination, or maybe it was the money, because it was a little pricey, I thought, a little pricey to cry and then laugh and then just sit there. But the point is, there's all kinds of ways to try to clear yourself out. I remember doing Osho's dynamic meditation. Oh my gosh. I don't know that I remember it exactly, but it was so intense. And he was saying, this guy was a teacher from India. He became the Bhagwan Rajneesh guy. If you've ever seen, there's a documentary about him in Oregon. A little slanted, I thought. But anyway, he was a teacher. And one of the things I liked about him was that many of his students who kind of spun off from him, they took what they got from him and then did amazing things. Some of them were really became exceptional teachers of, say, Tantra or how to be present, those kinds of things. Anyway, this dynamic meditation, you're starting, it's in 4 parts, as I remember. And the first part, you wear a blindfold for the whole thing, and you're standing in this large open room with all these other people. This is at his ashram in India, where I went several years after he had passed away. I had nothing to do with the Oregon place, although if I had heard of it, I could easily imagine have gotten involved with it, given who I was at that time. Anyway, I'm standing in this giant room, and you wear a blindfold, and the first part, 15 minutes, it's an hour-long meditation. The first part, 15 minutes, you are screaming, yelling, like at the top of your lungs, just everything that comes out of your mouth. It's just a dump. It's a dump of every negative emotion, negative thought, negative feeling. I can't stand it. But you don't put it into words necessarily. You don't want to distract people. You make it all sounds, and you just get it all out for 15 minutes. So then the next part is you're jumping up and down with your hands extended up over your head. You're kind of reaching towards the sky. Your hands are straight up, and you jump up, and when you come down, your heels hit the ground. And if you're doing it right, it sends this kind of shockwave up your whole spine, and you're saying the word who. So you're jumping up, your hands in the air, coming down on your heels over and over. Who. Like that's the thing. And it's that sound, who, apparently, he's the teacher, that sound, he chose that sound for whatever effects that it might have. So I was doing that. So that's 15 minutes of that. And then meanwhile, there's music playing in the background during the first part where everybody's dumping out their negativity. The second part during the who, there's music playing there. And then at the end of the 15 minutes, this voice just goes, stop. And all the music stops. There's just a silence. And that's the actual meditation. When they say stop, you freeze. You just freeze in that position wherever you are, your hands up in the air. You just freeze after half an hour of all this stuff. And that's the meditation. And I think, like I mentioned, he thought Westerners the minds were so busy. There wasn't any way you could just sit and meditate. That wasn't in the cards for us. We were just too crazy. You needed to dump out the negativity. You needed to get your body and your mind, everything focused, warmed up with this who and the jumping and the hitting your heels on the hard floor. And so then stop, and then you're meditating. And then you have 15 minutes. And the last 15 minutes of music comes in, and you just dance. You just dance. You just move your body. Blindfolds on. You don't have to worry about how you look. You're not looking at anybody else. Maybe sneak a peek. I'm not going to say whether I did or didn't. Anyway, the idea is you're dancing, and it really can feel very joyful, very free. And then the meditation's over, and then you could, just go about your day. And I imagine there's still little pockets of people who practice that. It was a wonderful meditation. I'm just mostly sitting these days. Oh, God. Universe! What the fuck? Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time. Please visit the home of the Ten Crutches Podcast at tencrutches.link. That's tencrutches.link. The book that inspired the podcast, a book I wrote called 10 Crutches for Walking in the Present, is available for free download on the website. Also on the website, you can visit the archive to hear any published episode and see show notes for any and every show. Thanks so much for listening. And once again, thanks so much for listening. And I won't say it once again. See you next time.